while trying to ignore the result, I think it was quite an amazing experience for sure. Because already when I was like 6 years ago, I was dreaming of climbing at the Olympics one day. Back then there were rumors that one day climbing would finally make it. Honestly, I thought it would be earlier, but better later than ever. And yeah, just staying in the village with all the different athletes from all the different sports was actually quite incredible. And the pandemics, I didn't think that made it so much worse. Like, throughout the village, you could like move pretty easily. And I was really afraid that, you know, during the climbing, it would be completely silent because the organizers said that the cheering would be forbidden. But in the end, there was quite a lot of cheering, and for sure it wasn't like amazing atmosphere. But then on top of that, knowing that this is the Olympics and everybody was watching on the TV, it definitely made the competition like a real competition. You know, the pressure was definitely there, especially, you know, with the postponement of the Olympics, which in my mind like made the whole competition even more serious, even more stressful, because, you know, due to that, I just sacrificed one more year of rock climbing just for the Olympics. In a way, I tried to pretend that it was a good thing, that, you know, during the 1 year, there's so much work that I can do and be a better climber, which I think essentially we did a lot of work, but mentally it made it even harder. But then in the end, I don't think I messed up mentally so much. It was just just a little bit different route setting, what I was hoping for, both for boulder, both for lead. But in the end, it was really such a gamble, you know, trying to manage the training in order to be perfect in all three disciplines. And in lead, it's kind of like you never really know what they're going to set. In boulder, you just have to be prepared for absolutely everything. But in lead, you never really know how long and how pumpy and which kind of style they're going to set. It was kind of, you know, I was suspicious that it would be definitely much more old school and maybe more crimpy due to the conditions and because they just wanted to play it safe, let's say. But let's say I didn't really expect that it would be as old school as in the end it was. And for me, it's really, really difficult to be like on the top of the game in like the pure power, which was like what I definitely needed for speed climbing, while at the same time being really, really good in endurance, super endurance stuff, which for me it's impossible. So I was prepared for a little bit shorter route, but you know, that's the life, and I hope I will have another chance in Paris in 3 years. I think we are both very experienced when it comes to competition climbing. I think the fact that Jakob has done even slightly more competitions than me, I don't think it played much that difference, because, you know, the amount of pressure and stress you're experiencing at the Olympics, it's like nothing compared to the World Cup, you know, at least in my or Jakob's position, because we didn't go to Tokyo just to give it a try, you know. World Cup is a situation that we've been exposed so many times, but you know, the amount of pressure, you just have to like triple it or even more. And I think you know, we've been competing on the in the lead climbing World Cups or World Championships for so many times, and it's always a little bit more about the style. And you know, this is more of a style that Jakob was always excelling some years ago when the style was more frequent. Recently, when I've been like pretty dominant over the last few years, the style was a little bit more new school with more like slopers and heel hooks and sketchy climbing. But when it comes to like just pure crimping, and when it's more about like whoever can hang on longer on crimps, he's always been better. That's the way it is. I definitely give Paris another try, because I see the preparation for Paris 24 as not as much of a sacrifice as I did for Tokio, simply because there is no speed climbing. And secondly, I am well aware if I want to have a good chance, I need to prioritize lead over boulder. And as I've already seen over the last 2 years, you know, just by training boulder, I am not really progressing anymore. I have certain weaknesses on my body, and I can work on my weaknesses like during some exercises, but just the training, the modern boulderings, all the dyno only just makes harm on my body. And as it turned out, you know, bouldering is just the roulette, and it all depends so much on the route setters, whereas lead climbing, it's more on like how physically you are prepared and you know about your ability not to mess up under pressure. But I think usually I do well, especially on the serious competitions in lead climbing. And what is great, as there is one discipline less, I'm definitely sure I will still have some time for rock climbing and, you know, to keep the right mental balance and, you know, keep it as a, you know, follow a little bit healthier way of preparation. Because I think when it comes to athleticism and sacrificing rock climbing for the last 2 years, I thought I was still on the right balance, but I think I maybe just dedicated even way too much. You know, that it wasn't healthy, and this over the level sacrification and determination in the end didn't even play any better role in the, you know, in the physical part of my climbing. But at the same time, you know, the postponement of the Olympics made it all really complicated because, you know, when I see it from the retrospective, it probably would have been better after the decision about the postponement. Okay, it's great. Now I have half a year. I can take time off and climb on the rock. But you know, at that moment, it wasn't really possible. I thought I would like regret it. You know, I thought like, wow, this is opportunity. Let's train even harder now. For the next 1.5 months after the Olympics, I didn't really climb very hard. I took some time off completely. My mind wanted to climb like so badly, but my body just didn't want to continue. I still felt some pain in some parts of the body, so I definitely wanted to let it heal. And at the same time, I just felt tired. You know, the first 2-3 weeks after the Olympics, I was sleeping all the time. Nevertheless, I still felt sleepy. And I think only right now, 2 months after the Olympics, I feel like my body is finally ready to like climb hard again. And you know, I think the whole psychosomatic process in the body after the disappointment and after so much work for the Olympics just played its role. And I don't think I accepted it. I just managed to forget it due to, you know, other nice events in my life that happened, like wedding. Yeah. We had the wedding with my wife Eva here in Arco because it's our favorite place. When we were thinking about where we could make a wedding, I think it only took us like 1 hour to make a final decision. It's going to be here. And we both like it here, and we definitely want to stay here for quite a bit of time in the future. Not only because the place is great and we like it here, but there's also a lot to be done in terms of some climbing projects. So, and now I really want to dedicate myself to some hard sport climbing, find some hard projects. The other good thing is that Stefano Ghisolfi is living here, so we can search the projects together, try together, which is definitely much better also in terms of like, you know, finding the best possible beta. That it often happens if you try a project just alone, you just end up climbing it the wrong way. Just, for example, like Alex Megos in Bibliography, that his way is probably a 9C, but then easier betas were found. I've tried 2 routes, which will almost certainly will be 9B+. Then there are some other projects that I either tried too briefly to tell, or some projects that I didn't even try, or some lines that I have in my mind to be bolted, that I think some of these could be even 9C or could be even harder. It's hard to tell. There's like a lot of like small cracks. There's never more than like maybe 30 roots, but some of these cracks, you know, hide true gems. And I think especially for the hard climbing, there's the rock in Arco always creates like a tiny little edges, and it's quite difficult to actually find a section which is completely blank. So that's a good thing. So close to my hometown, there is this area, Moravský Kras, with different cracks, and usually we would go to Holstein or Slope, whose potential is probably completely exploited. There are maybe 2 or 3 projects that are bolted and they're waiting for the ascent, but like bolting new stuff in those 2 cracks, it's probably impossible. But then there are some other cracks. One of them was definitely Bičí Skála, that I definitely knew that there was always a bit of a potential, but I never really was sure if the rock quality was good enough. And most of like the good looking lines, I've always thought like, no, it's impossible. There are no holds. But finally this year I had a time to check it out after the Olympics as a part of the rest. And I was really surprised that the rock quality is actually quite good and the holds are there. So I think at the moment there are about 6 projects on Bičí Skála. All of them could be 9B or harder. And they are probably not like the world-class lines, but you know, for me, once it's close to the home, you know, as long as the project is there, it's kind of like irritating me to get it done. And sometimes for me, like the more obscure, weird moves, which definitely Bičí Skála, it's like pretty amazing 3D climbing. Some of the projects have like a down climb through inverted roof, and you really have to be creative with your beta. And this, for me, definitely adds up to, you know, enjoyable climbing experience. Sometimes I don't really need to climb like the best looking line. I'm more searching like the beauty of the movement. I think the beauty of the movement in general in climbing is underestimated. I think for the next short-term goals are definitely back in sport climbing, and that combines with the competitions for lead climbing quite well. Like, if the next season I'm going to do any competitions, it's going to be probably lead climbing competitions. And at least like if you really focus this for a month on competition climbing, get one competition done, then you are done and you can go straight away to the crack. And I definitely feel like straight after the period of training for the competition, I usually feel in a really good shape at the crack. So for that, I think for me, that works really well. And yes, I'm well aware that, you know, to upgrade my performance in on-sighting, flashing, or red pointing, it's going to be really hard. For me, I think the next goal is hopefully try to find some 9C in Arco and try to climb the second 9C. Because I'm well aware that the silence is a very specific route, so I would like to climb another 9C in, let's say, more a normal style.